Good evening. Good evening. It's around 4:30 p.m. in Israel and about 9:30 in the East Coast of the United States. Um, of course, in DC, and sometime in the afternoon in Europe. This is Hannah Klein, and welcome to my podcast, Hannah Klein's Time. Before starting, please listen to my podcast, download the episodes, and share my podcast with your friends or people whom you know. It's I took up a lot of time of Colonel Zamir. Today's guest is Colonel Zamir. He is the Reserve Army Colonel of IDF. It's an honor and a privilege to invite him on my podcast today. Colonel Zamir himself has 3 sons who are serving in Gaza right now. I requested him to share his family story, if possible, as his introduction, and speak about himself with his words. Therefore, I will just note here that he has PhD in astrophysics. He told me that he also told me that he doesn't have problems sharing his family story. Therefore, please listen to his story from himself. I hope you really do. Many Israelis or Jewish people have gone through unimaginable tragedy, or they have unimaginable memory of tragedy throughout history or during the Holocaust under the Nazi regime. Today, I have an important objective opinion about October 7th, the military campaign in Gaza, ICC, and, there are more, such as UNRWA. We also discussed President Trump's decision on the U.S. ruling Gaza. I believe it is a very great idea, and I fully support President Trump's decision on U.S. ruling Gaza. It was also quite interesting to hear Colonel Zamir's opinion on this. It was very fascinating, and I was I learned a lot from him. So now, please welcome Colonel Zamir. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
now
So
now it's
now it's
recording.
working. Yes. So
Say
it's a
okay.
real pleasure that, I really have you here. Um,
It's an
I've
honor
been
and a pleasure.
Well, it's an honor for me too. Yeah, like yeah, I'm very pleased that like you're on my podcast. But um to be maybe to for the audience, if you
Mhm.
could maybe speak about your brief background and also about like your family history a little, that would be very
Oh,
much appreciated.
by all means, my name is Zamir. I'm 64 years old, married to the same wife all the time, with three boys. Um, I, nowadays, it might be considered an achievement, but I have three boys, ages 36, 33, and 28. And my parents, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I was born and raised in Israel, served for 4 years in the regular army because I became an officer, then I did a lot of Reserve Army duties. I did my PhD in theoretical astrophysics in Ben Gurion University in the Negev. I then worked in the Nuclear Research Center in Dimona for 7 years. And then I went into business in the private market, and I'm now running and part of the shareholders of a company named Levgam, who is doing rubber devulcanization. And we are also doing, with the blessing and the encouragement of the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, we are doing some agriculture in Tanzania. So this is me, my parents. My father came from Poland in 1925. He was at the time about 3, 4 years old. He came from the city of Lodz together with his elder sister and his younger brother, who came to Israel because they came to Israel because my grandfather was a Zionist. And he decided that as a Zionist, he should live. He was a sort of a extreme religious Orthodox Jew in Poland. And he came
Oh,
to
I
Israel
see.
to work as a farmer because for him that was Zionism, to come and cultivate the land and become the new Jew that works for a living and all that. So that's what he did with his family, which, by the way, saved them because the Holocaust, coming 14 years later,
Yeah.
left almost no one from the Jews that lived in the city of Lodz.
Mm.
So that's my grandparents. They then lived happily ever after in Israel. My grandfather died at the age of 93. My grandmother at the age of
That's
98. So I knew
that's a
them
nice
well and had a lot
great
of time
life.
to talk to them. And
Mm.
my mother, on the other side, her parents came from Poland to France, and
Mm.
they stayed in France and they worked in the textile industry. They had a lot of money on trading on cloth and so on. My mother was one of seven in her family. Um, in the time of the Holocaust, the Germans came and took her parents to Auschwitz, and they were exterminated in that extermination camp.
Oh,
And my mother, together with two brothers and one sister, came to Israel through Spain. They walked through the Pyrenees in a long journey
oh my
to come
goodness.
to Israel in 1946.
Wow.
In 1946, three of the sisters stayed in France.
Mm.
Uh, my mother passed away recently in last August at the age of 96 and a half.
Wow.
Her young brother
Mm.
was killed in one of the wars in 1952 in Tel Motila when we fought with the Syrians over the water. And the rest died in old age and happy here in Israel, the other three. And the three in France have all already passed away. They were elder, and one of them even reached the age of 100 or more.
Wow.
So that's the family history.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, both
Well,
of
I'm
you,
sure you'll find in Israel many such stories. It's not an
well,
uncommon story. There are a lot of stories like that. We are a country of immigrants.
mm, yeah, exactly. But um I hear uh from Polish, Jews, like like your
Mm.
parents. Um about going through like Auschwitz sometime,
Mhm.
and it's just so terrible. And sometimes, I just had a comment from a person, after the war, what happened in Poland, I mean, they were out, when they were outside, like when they went outside, I guess Poland or something, like what they went through was just so, I guess, a lot, I guess,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You, I think that anyone who really wants to understand
mhm,
what's lying at the bottom of the state of Israel,
yes.
one of the founding stones. It's not the only one because you cannot build on that alone.
But
You
you
need
were
other
talking about
things as well.
Herzl?
But the founding stone,
Hmm.
one of the founding stones is to understand what happened to the Jewish people in the Holocaust. Combine that with the fact that this land is ours. Combine that with the fact that, yes, the Jews needs to have a place. Combine that with the fact that there is a nation with culture, with everything that has to do with that, and you'll come to understand why is it that we are fighting so badly for this small piece of land in the middle of all the Arabs around us.
Yes.
That's the entire issue.
That is, I totally agree with you. Well, see, I just had not had experience, like terrible experience as you did. And that's one part. And also, I mean, now I see the protests going on in the West, and all the crimes,
Mhm.
against Jewish people, like as if they were like, the synagogues burned down. I mean, and also like students get assaulted. I really find,
Mhm.
like these just Jewish student, like university students, you know, um, were asked if they were Jews or not, at the entrance, and that they were like
Mhm.
denied to enter the like to join the lecture. I mean, this is like these are crimes against humanity. I mean, that's the crime against humanity. Really.
Hiroko,
Mm.
you have to understand, anti-Semitism has been there forever. It's there since the Jewish people was founded. People did not like it. People did not like us for many reasons. Many reasons. Now, anti-Semitism has been suppressed slightly due to World War II and the Holocaust because the West was traumatic with that. But
Mm.
then time passes and the trauma sort of fades away. And
Mm.
it allows those things to come back again. And now it gives them new rationalities. The war in Gaza, this, that, a lot of nonsense that have nothing to do with reality, but have to do with the basic things that we are not loved. This is one, I'm saying not the only, but one of the reasons that we should have a state of our own. Okay,
Yes.
that's the issue.
And see, like one of the things that I often hear is about the Russian, empire, uh,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
after, that, especially Soviet Union, persecuting Zionists, and also, um, like it's they Russian Jews like have gone like or those in the like I guess like in the territory of Soviet Union, like they went through a terrible time, I hear, as well. And also
Well, yeah, that's true. That was in the past. But what you have just described in the universities has happened now in the
yes,
United States and in Europe, not in Russia.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so it goes beyond boundaries, beyond anything. It has to do with fundamental culture
Um,
of people. It has to do with the fact that people are afraid from anything that is different, and people would like to find someone to blame for
mm,
bad situations. So if I'm not happy, I need someone to blame because it's not possible for me to take responsibility as if it's my responsibility that things are bad for me. It's somebody else's responsibility.
Mm.
I guess that in that respect, the Japanese society is slightly different. There is a lot more understanding of your personal responsibility for your own situation and whatever happens around you. It's a different society. It looks about things in a different way.
I see. Well, that's a nice word, compliment, for Japanese. But
No, it's not a compliment. It's a fact. The Japanese society, it has its drawbacks, but on the good side,
mm,
it's a society that cultivates a lot of personal responsibility. You are
well,
responsible. You are
that is,
responsible
yeah.
for what you are doing. You are
Mm,
responsible for society. You are responsible for your family,
mm,
responsible for a lot of things.
mm.
Okay? And it's the society that is important, not the individual. It does not simply promotes like the Western society, just the individuals. No, the connections, the ties, the family, that is the important thing, not me.
I see.
So it's a different society. And
Yeah.
as a different society, it has some things that we need to look at and say, they are doing something better than we do. And there are things that, no, they are doing the wrong thing in my view. But that's it.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know this, but
Mm-hmm,
I've told this to some people, like, but there is
mm-hmm,
like kind of like tales that, Japanese
mm-hmm.
people came from the land of like Jewish land. It's true.
Okay. Great. I'm I'm all for that. Would should strengthen
Great.
the ally between Japan and Israel, and both countries will prosper from
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
it.
But yeah, like I after the executive order of President Trump, like if you're discussing anti-Semitism, like he signed an executive order. I saw at least one student whose nationality it was, and she was from China actually. And I
Mm-hmm,
was well, like considering China, like, Japanese government is right now like fighting for like Uyghurs, like, the ethnic
mm-hmm.
minorities
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, like I saw like I've seen some Chinese people, and I'm friends with some, of course, but what I disagree on is the I don't know if they know the fact or not, but they believe that there is some kind of assimilation program, like, those Uyghurs, like, help, like the Chinese government is helping, the Uyghurs to get used to Chinese culture, which is not true at all. And um, just, I mean, I believe that, Jewish people are not like, the majority of this, the population in the world. But, I just can sometimes, like, as a human, I just do not understand why, the more powerful, force has to like, like try to destroy like, like the ethnic minority or something, in this, world right now. And well, it sounds
It's
like
no, I really understand what you're saying, but
Mm,
let me put it this way. First of all, there are a lot of minorities
mm,
around the world. There are also large groups of people who are supportive of the Jewish people. Take
yeah.
the evangelist community
Mhm.
around the world, a huge supporter of Israel, a huge supporter of the Jewish people
Yes.
through their own belief, through their own way of reading the
Yeah.
same Bible that everybody reads,
Yes.
okay? Everybody in the Christian world. Then we have other worlds like the Chinese, like the Indian world, which are not Christians and are not monotheistic and are not religious at all and everything. And yes, humanity, ever since it was created, had a bad attitude towards minorities. We
Yeah.
are trying to make it better. We have not succeeded yet. And
Mm.
there are a lot who hates the Jews. There are a lot who don't hate the Jews, but simply don't understand what they are saying. Take the students that march in the universities in California,
Oh, yeah.
stating from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Fine. What river? They don't know. What sea? They have no idea.
I saw
What
that.
will happen if it will be free from the river to the sea? Do
Yeah.
you understand that that means that there would be no state of Israel?
Yeah.
We haven't thought about it. The fact that people can be manipulated
Mm.
based on ignorance, based on the fact that they are being told a nice story, but they don't care to check the facts of the story. Not that they are unable.
Mm.
Part of them are extremely talented people,
Mm.
but they are not willing to make the effort to verify whether the story that they've been told is indeed corresponding with reality or with the historical truth or anything. They don't care.
Well, yeah, I heard a discussion. Well, I don't know if I can talk about this individual because this there's kind of like a
Yeah,
lawsuit
so
going on and blah blah blah.
let's forget about it, and
Okay.
I guess you have other questions you want to ask me, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, I've been interested in, Israel, for as long as I remember myself, like all the time.
Okay.
But um and I've always, I was always watching news on Israel, and also I've known Jewish people. But you've talked about like anti-Semitism, but October 7th, that's that just my patient ended, I guess. Like, towards those who were, whatever, committing, you know, uh just firing rockets at or whatever. I just thought that it has to really end. But I hope that you live in Israel. As an Israeli, what do you think about and also I guess like it was just too terrible, and I'm really sorry for the victims. But could you talk about it if you could?
Yeah, look, the October 7th has a lot of aspects to it. It
Mm.
has the aspect of the fact that, yes, we saw that the Gazans,
Mm.
uh, led by Hamas, but also about, I would say, most of the population. I haven't conducted a survey or a poll to state how many, but most of them are
Majority,
supporters
right?
of Hamas.
Yes.
And they committed the worst of atrocities that you can think of in terms of murder, rape, killing babies in ovens, and so on. The worst things that you can imagine.
Mm.
Just for the sheer fact that they hate the Jews. Not because they did something bad to them. By the way, some
Mm.
of those that got murdered are those that were taking Palestinians from the border with Gaza to Israeli hospitals to be treated, them or their family members or whatever. That did not change anything because the hatred is hatred that is being there. It is a religious, theological issue that is rooted deeply inside these people. And they've been educated about that by UNRWA and by
Yes.
their own system. We will talk about UNRWA later, but
Yeah.
that's part of it. The second aspect that is important is the Israeli failure. There was an Israeli military failure that allowed that to happen. This is terrible. This reflects very badly on the commanders that have been in charge at that time, from the chief of staff downwards, and the head of the Shabak, the Israeli Internal Security Service, and the commander of the southern territory, and the commander of this division in Gaza. They are all to be blamed. And they have all, in my view, we should have treated them differently than we have treated them. They should have been impeached and court-martialed and so on if they had stayed alive. I mean, if I were in their shoes, let's say I was the chief of staff or the commander of the northern section of the of Israeli army, I would have committed suicide on the 7th of October due to a failure that is unbearable. Unbearable. The other thing is to ask ourselves, okay, this is tactical issues. What has been the root of these tactical issues to come about?
Yes.
What caused such a major failure within Israel? And the reasons are basically the fact that we embraced all kind of liberal values that and convinced ourselves that the people in Gaza are there for good life, for living well, and if we just give them the good life that they want, and if we just make sure that they have jobs and work, you know that when the massacre happened, 40,000 Gazians were in Israel working.
Yes.
The day of the massacre. So if we allow that, that means that they are not the enemy. So as a commander, when I look to the other side into Gaza, I don't see an enemy. I see poor people who just want to live well, and I have the power to allow them to live better. So let's use my power in order to do good. This is a Western liberal way of thinking. It's nice, it's good, but it's completely irrelevant to the Middle East. The Middle East doesn't function under these values. The Gazans do not embrace them and they do not think about them. They are a bitter and cruel enemy. And if we ignore what they are saying, what they are lasting for, what they are educating their youth for, that would be a willing blindness on our side. We are willingly blinding ourselves from looking at the reality as it is. And as it is, we have an enemy on the other side. We don't have poor people that wants to live well. Now, it has roots that you can trace back a long time ago. And I can tell you that I have found Ernst Bevin saying on what was the way that he at that time saw the things happening in the Jewish in Palestine, as opposed to what we are witnessing now. And he addressed the parliament. He addressed the parliament in 1947. 1947, by the way, is before the Jewish state of Israel was erected. Yeah, it only came about in 1948. In 1947, he tries to explain to the parliament what is wrong in what is happening in Palestine. Okay, and he says in one, and I'll quote just a short thing in it. His Majesty's government have thus been faced with an irreconcilable conflict of principles. There are in Palestine about 1.2 million Arabs and about 600,000 Jews. For the Jews, the essential point of principle is the creation of a sovereign Jewish state. For the Arabs, the essential point of principle is to resist to the last the establishment of the Jewish sovereignty in any part of Palestine. That means, and this is a direct quotation from his speech, that means that there is no reconciliation between the two movements, because the aim of one is to negative the other, is not to live by its side in some part of the land, and then you can divide the land somehow. It's not. It's no.
Well,
we do not want you.
Yeah, I hear.
And this is what sits in. That's what sits in the essence of things, and that's why they want to destroy us and they want to kill us. And we have to understand that, although as Westerners it's
Mm.
really hard for us to understand that such a society exists. It's a
Mm.
problem.
Maybe, I have heard, some Israeli, like research scientists, discussing the
Mhm,
Middle East.
mhm,
And it's, there's like, Japanese researchers, researching the Middle East. And
yeah.
I guess like the Japanese media is more like the there there is a bit of essence of anti-Semitism in a way, especially in the among some of the Japanese media. Like they have invited, like for example, Fusako Shigenobu, who commit 1972 Lod Airport massacre, uh, on TBS, it's not always, but Asahi newspaper company has been like
Mhm.
reporting that like there has been like, like as if like Israel is to blame like on every death of the the Gazans. Well, I don't know how many cases of but anyways, like um I don't know. I'm not sure about this, but is it because of probably the UN that is like pressuring Israel to allow like Palestinians to work? Like, allowing,
No,
work.
it's the Israeli security system that does that. But don't count on reporters and on those research. They are all coming from a way that is having a political agenda. The best way to phrase it, by the way, is to tell you a joke. Can I tell you a joke?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. One day, an Israeli living in the Judea and Samaria
Mhm,
was going around a zoo in Belgium,
mhm,
and a poor little girl has gone into the lion's
mhm,
cage because she slipped through the bars and everything and all that. And the lion was about to eat her.
mhm,
And her mother was shouting and screaming and all that. And the brave guy just jumped in, grabbed the girl, threw her out to her mother, jumped, hit the lion, and jumped out of the cage.
mhm,
So he was interviewed by a reporter who asked him, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" and all that. And he said, "I come from Israel. I live in the Judea and Samaria, what they call the West Bank, and so on and so
yes,
far."
yeah.
And the report that came out the next morning in the newspaper was the following: a white supremacist settler from Israel has
Oh,
attacked an African immigrant and grabbed his lunch.
oh my God.
Okay, the lion is an African immigrant. The lunch is the poor little girl, and the white supremacist, fascist guy is the one that saved the poor girl. So it is an issue of agenda. By the way, it happens to Israelis as well. And I'm sure that you'll be asking me about the military campaign, about the way the IDF conducts and all, and then I'll tell you some stories about that as well, because this is a twisted mind.
Mm,
It sort of enslaves everything, including the truth,
mm,
to their political agenda.
mm. Well, you know, I heard, well, I just, I was reading out some of like uh, what the students at Irma School were saying. And actually, this is something that has been posted on the embassies, what embassies X post, by the staff. But it's not just that. I just hear a lot about aura, but uh, anyways, I is it? Yeah, it's unimaginable what they say. I just read it yesterday, and it's just like, it's pure jihadism that they learn at our school. It sounds like, you have to die to what? Gain freedom or something. Free from like, wow. Well, like, like some of the comments, I mean, I cannot just tolerate is like stab the Jews and like go over with the car. It's like what they did on, October 7th. I mean,
Yeah, because you have to understand, this is a culture that really elevates death as the supreme goal, whereas the Western society and other culture promotes life.
mm,
And it says that you have to kill the Jews. It's in the Hadith. There is a Hadith to the Quran, which is like the Bible that goes by heart, but not in written. That says that they have to kill all the Jews, and that every stone and every tree who has a Jew hiding behind it will tell the Muslim to come and kill them.
mm,
This is the way they think, this is the way they educated their kids, and
mm,
this is the way it all works. So, yes, this is it. We have to understand that.
mm,
We cannot change it. There are almost, I don't know, 1.5, 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. We cannot change them. This is the way that a lot of them educate their kids, not all of them, by the way. But in Gaza, this is the system. This is the way. In the West Bank, this is the system. This is the way. And they want us out of here, and we have no place to go. So that's the basic of the conflict.
yeah,
And they will do whatever they can to kill us, and we have to do whatever we can to survive. Note that up until now,
mm,
and this is being changed now by President Trump.
mm,
Up until now,
mm,
they, when losing wars, they never really lost anything. They didn't lose land, they didn't lose support, they didn't lose anything. So they can afford losing as many wars as they need,
mm,
okay? And we only need to lose once.
yeah,
We lose once, we are wiped out, and we are dead. They can keep on. It's like the police and the thieves. The police can fail as much as they want. They only need to succeed once.
mm,
The thieves can succeed as much. They only have to fail once, and the police will catch them. So
mm,
that's the same here. Now, President Trump, in his declaration that there will be no Gazans in Gaza, and Gaza will no longer be an Arab territory, but the United States will take over, whoever, that is something that will tell them, look, there is something to lose in this game. You are not just playing with the odds to win, but you're playing with the odds to lose permanently. And this is the important message that President Trump is sending to the entire Arab world.
oh,
Okay? Note, you can mess up with Israel as much as you want, but know this, if you lose, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you territory. It's going to cost you that I'll dictate to you what's going to happen. It's going to cost you. It's not going to be like free and we come back to where we started. No.
oh,
And this is one of the important lessons. The other important lesson is that ever since we saw all kinds of ways to solve conflicts around the world, the most successful one was by transferring population from one side to the other. The Turks and the Greeks did that in 1923, for example, with 2 million people transferred altogether.
mm.
1.5 million Turks and 500,000 Greeks, and that helped solving the problem. So this is the important things that President Trump is now conveying to the world as to how to solve the problem.
Well, actually, I believe, well, I don't know professionally at this point, but Japan,
Mhm.
after 1945 went through US occupations. And in my opinion, I think it had a good effect on, the Japanese society, after the war. And, not just that, but, the United States soldiers, learned Japanese and also, like taught what democracy is and, so on. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I well, like some researchers may be critical about this, but I believe that, it has a positive effect, regarding this war, I believe. What do you think about this? Like, the US.
I'll tell you. I read
Mm,
the Emperor of Japan
mm.
has published sort of a proclamation after World War II,
Oh, yes, yes.
in which he asked the
Mm,
Japanese people
mm,
to live the way of the sword,
mm,
okay, and to start embracing technology, economy, and become a leader in those things as an opposition to the way of the sword. The Japanese people, being very obedient and very respectful for the emperor,
mm,
have done that to the letter. They started working on economy, on technology, on bringing, on copying, on inventing, on doing, because that is what the emperor said. And that was the way that the Japanese society was built. There was the emperor, who is the son of God, and therefore, if he tells us what we need to do, we do that.
mm,
We can't find a parallel in the Arab world. We
mm,
don't have yet a parallel to the emperor. The Americans, MacArthur, made a very wise decision
mm,
not to put the emperor on trial as a war criminal,
mm,
which I believe that eventually he was, looking at the way that they behaved in Indonesia, the way that they behaved in Thailand, the way that they behaved in Korea, besides in China. Besides that, he decided as a political decision, because he sort of understood or had the gut feeling, or I don't know what, that the emperor is the key to the change in Japan.
yes,
And the emperor proved to be the key of the change in Japan.
mm,
And that change has brought a lot of blessing, not just to Japan,
mm.
to the entire Western world. Where have we been without Japanese technology, without Japanese manufacturing, without a lot of the things that we got from Japan, a lot of the methods that have been developed in Japan has gone throughout the world as a contribution of the Japanese people after World War II to the world as a whole.
Mm,
So that was a combination between a good general who understood where he's coming into,
mm.
and the fact that the Japanese society had an hierarchy, and if you could influence the head, you'll influence the body. We
Ah,
don't have that parallel right now with the Palestinians.
that's pretty, yeah,
We
that's,
don't have an Hirohito. We don't have Emperor Hirohito here in Palestine.
but yeah,
I
I
mean,
thought first,
the
yes.
Arab counterpart for that would have been sufficient. We don't have that.
Uh,
Let's say it will be a religious mufti or a hajj or a religious thinker who would come to the Palestinians and say, look, guys, we have to change. We have to read the Quran in a different way.
mm. Well,
Okay?
I may
We
not.
haven't found it. By the way, even the Christian world got that. At the time of, let's say, the 12th century, the
Mhm,
Pope, Orban,
mhm,
has given the Jews the yellow sign. That was his invention, not the Nazis, of a Pope. Because he read, yeah, it was a Pope named Orban who invented that, I think, about 700 years before the Nazis. But and by the way, the Muslims did the same. That the Jews has to wear yellow coats. So yellow is the color that the Jews goes by for a long time. Now, if we had someone who comes like the evangelist church
mm,
to the Muslim world, like the evangelist church came to the Christian world and said, guys, you are reading the Bible in the wrong way. Read it right, and you will see that we need to be supportive of the Jewish cause of having a homeland in the state of Israel.
mm,
Just read it right. The same Bible. Don't change it. Just read it right. If there will be right now a leader
mm,
coming from the Islam who would say that, and we haven't found a single one yet, a single one,
mm,
then maybe we will start a change that within a few hundred years would be substantial enough to make a difference.
Yes, like I just feel really bad. I mean, I just feel so sorry for the victims of October 7th. And, my grandmother is from Christian background, and
Mm-hmm.
she was Christian even after she converted probably to Buddhism, and she ended up saying like I'm confused, but like I don't know what to say. She was her great grandfather converted to Christians for reasons, and
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, there were, it was like between the end of like Edo period to Meiji, which is a modern, the start of like the
Mm-hmm.
modern constitutional monarchy, like for Japan. Uh, and that time, there were, Christian ministers, like Protestant ministers coming from North America. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he just let, this people, one of the ministers at our house. And that's the start of like how um the entire household, converted to Christianity, and also it has lasted to my grandmother's, I'm sorry, grandmother's, era. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was also, like I often visited my friend in the United States. They are earnest Christians, they support Israel, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them
Mm-hmm.
are in the military service, and, yeah, like are pretty angry about October 7th. Really, really angry. What happened. And they are,
I'm
actually they're
I'm
supporting, yeah. What is it? Yeah, go ahead, please go
I'm
ahead.
no, I'm trying to give you a rational analysis, not my emotions. My emotions are an entirely different thing.
Mm.
The anger, the humiliation, and all that exists. But I'm trying in this podcast to give you the
Yes, that's
rational way
very
of
helpful.
looking at
Yes, I
things,
understand.
ignoring for a moment all the emotions that come about due to those things.
Okay.
But there are emotions, of course. I mean, there is a strong feeling of injustice on
Yeah.
the way that the world behaves towards the Jewish people and the state of Israel. It
Mm.
is a feeling of injustice. So, what should I do with that? Should I share with you my feeling? I'm not sure that that's what the audience would like. What the audience would like is to hear sort of a rational analysis of the things and what
Yes.
can and
Yes.
should be done.
Well, I really appreciate it, and actually, I found one thing about uh Arab world is that they don't probably like have invented ways to negotiate with Israel right now. Like, it's kind of shocking, but it sounds that way. I'm not sure, but like,
No, I think I'll correct you. I'm sorry.
okay, go
The
ahead.
Arab world, when they say negotiation,
Mm.
they mean an entirely different thing than what you mean when you say negotiation.
Oh yeah.
For you and me, if we want to negotiate a deal, we start by having the first draft of an agreement, which either your side or my side would put on the table. The other party would say, this one, no, I want it to be changed to that I don't agree, this I agree, this one I want you to erase, this one I want you to change, and all that.
Mm.
We shall discuss that for a certain period of time, and
Mhm.
eventually we will try, if we are diligent in what we are doing, okay, we will try to accommodate for each other's problems, issues, fears, and so on, and
Mm.
we will have an agreement.
Mm.
Once we have signed that agreement,
Mhm.
both you and I feel obliged to stand by the wording of that agreement,
Yes.
because we put in a lot of effort into this wording, because we mean every word.
Yes.
When you come to negotiate in the Middle East, it doesn't work that way. First of all, the Arabs would come to an agreement with a non-Muslim only because they are weak at that certain time and they need to gain strength, not because they want to come to an understanding with you, not because they agree with you, not because of anything. So once you have signed the agreement, only then starts the negotiation. Only then starts the discussion. Okay, we wrote that, but we really mean something else. We really want something else.
Oh.
And when they feel strong enough,
Mhm.
they would violate that agreement
That's cool.
because this comes from the Quran,
Yeah.
because Muhammad did that in Hudaybiyah, and that
Oh.
brought him victory, and therefore that allows any Muslim in the world to violate such agreements once he feels strong enough to do that. They are only there to serve his weak time until he gains strength. So the whole concept
Mhm.
of negotiation, of agreements, of
Mm.
honoring an agreement
Mm.
is totally different when you come to discuss that in the Middle East.
Oh.
Arafat, by the way, said that on the Oslo Accords the day
Yes.
after they were signed. He said that in Durban, in South Africa. He said that in Belgium. He said that in Arabic. That what I've just explained to you was his exact words when he referred to that, because they told him, how did you allow that to happen, to give land to the Jews and all that, to agree to all kinds of things? He said, no, it's just temporary. It is a Hudaybiyah agreement. Once we gain strength, we will change that. In October 7th, the Hamas thought that they are strong enough to do that. We need now to prove them that they were utterly, totally wrong, and that the price for that is huge, is unbearable. So
Mm.
that anyone who would ever come to think about doing something like that again would understand, whether it be Hezbollah, that means that there will be no Hezbollah, no Lebanon anymore. If it's in Syria, there will be no Syria. That's the understanding that
Oh.
they need to draw out of that. This is like a small example. You see that was Gaza. There is no Gaza anymore. There are no Gazans in Gaza. They are spread all over. I wish them all, by the way, good life. I don't know where, and I don't care where. As long as it's not by my side and they are not interrupting me, they may have a prosperous life
Mhm.
in either Greenland or Belgium or Canada or Venezuela or Africa. I don't care.
Mhm.
But they have to understand this will be the price of anyone who tries to do the same. Okay? That is the message.
Mm.
This is
Well,
the way you enforce things in the Middle East.
I see. Yeah, I have more questions. You know. Um,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Um, so so the current, military campaign has been, criticized by the media like every day. You know, NHK is reading out the notification from Gaza Health Ministry on, which is not true. I mean, I don't know why they're like, just reading out propaganda for those who want to propagate things, but they're doing that. And I've never heard, any news media talk about, reports or, like from um the press service of the IDF, at all. And I don't know if they probably read out CNN or just BBC and like
Well, to try and be their defense advocate, I for a moment, I
Mhm.
would say that they simply don't have any other source.
Oh,
There are no other source reporting the casualties. Israel does not report them. Israel does not count them.
oh.
Okay, we don't have the way to do that. So
Mm.
they get it from there, and the Palestinians, of
Mhm.
course, have an interest in trying to show that what we are doing is very wrong and very bad, and so on and so forth. But
Mhm.
let's look at the campaign. So I can say that first of all, the campaign has started too late. It should have started immediately. We should not have waited the 3 weeks that we have waited.
Oh, okay.
But that's on debate because others are saying the army was not prepared.
Mm.
So what? Tomorrow we will be attacked by Egypt and I don't know who else, and we'll say, we need time for preparation. By the time that we will, if let's say in 1973, the army would have said, I'm not prepared, I need 3 weeks to prepare myself. After these 3 weeks of preparation, there wouldn't have been a state of Israel.
Oh.
So you need to do that immediately. We did not, therefore, took advantage on the very beginning of what to do. Second thing, professionally, I disagree with the method that has been chosen by the army to fulfill the goal set forth by the Israeli government. And in any democracy, the government sets forth the goals of the war, and the army sets out to achieve them. So they did not work properly professionally because we have poor generals who do not know how to command these troops. We need to make the change. We are currently making the change. The new chief of staff that is going to come is probably a good general that would know how to do that. He will bring in generals that knows the job, and we will have a much more effective army now. Okay? So fighting that long time with Hamas over there is because of two things. One, we were not prepared and we were not good enough. Second, we tried to be extremely, better than any army in saving civilian human lives. Look, according to what is called the international law, by the way, there is no such thing as international law because there is no world parliament that makes laws and all. These are agreements and understandings and trusts and so on. But according to that, a few things must be said. One, if you have a school from which rockets are fired, that school becomes a military target and you can eliminate that no matter who's inside, women, children, whatever. That is what we call the international law. Okay? Same for UNRWA facilities, same from hospitals, same for everything. The Israeli judicial system has been twisted with two liberal ideas, okay, stating, no, you should not harm them under any circumstances. So we took a lot of risks of not harming them. We are now performing the campaign very delicately, relatively delicately, it's not delicate, relatively delicately, to what any army would have conducted under these circumstances, may it be the American, may it be the British, may it be others, according to their officers who are coming to Gaza and witness what we are doing. The way that attacks are being carried out, the way that the amount of lawyers from the military attorney general present in the various headquarters of the various units that are fighting in order to make sure that there are no violations of international law, so to speak. All that is happening, and the result is that the amount of civilian casualties relative to any other campaign conducted by democratic nations is low. Is way lower than what the Americans did in Iraq or in Afghanistan or in other places, way lower than what the British did, according to British and American officers who came to visit Gaza, not according to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is not relevant, but what they're saying, Colonel Camp and others, okay? They are saying that. Now, we have to understand that this liberalism is that something that slows the campaign a lot and makes it go very slowly. Now we have a ceasefire due to the issue of the kidnappers. We have a lot of people kidnapped into Gaza, and we want to free them because, look, I have my own view on that agreement. I don't think that this is a good agreement. I will tell you, after I finish explaining why I think it's a bad agreement, I will tell you what are the circumstances under which I do support doing it. It's bad because not just because we are we need not Israel as a government, as a nation, should never speak with terrorists. Nothing. We do not speak to terrorists, period. That was our policy in the 70s. We went all the way to Entebbe in order to free our hostages without negotiating with terrorists. That was the understanding. We then started doing deals, starting with the Jibril deal that the late Prime Minister Rabin did, in which we gave them a lot of terrorists for a few of ours. And it went into the other deals and eventually ended up in the Shalit deal that Prime Minister Netanyahu did, and was a bad deal of more than 1,000 for one of us. But that was always a lot of terrorists, some of them with blood on their hands, released for the release of our hostages. In this deal, something else happened. And that something else is that Israel is also put on the table as part of the negotiation, the deployment of its army and its policy in Gaza. That means that any Arab looking at that says, all I need to do is to kidnap Israelis. I'll have Israelis in captivity, and I can dictate to the state of Israel the deployment of its army and its policy. This is crossing a line that I never thought would be crossed in Israel. And having said all that, it might be that I'm short-sighted, that I don't really understand the full game and haven't looked wide enough and deep enough, as did Prime Minister Netanyahu, who had a deal back starting after Donald Trump was elected and was still serving as president-elect while the Biden administration existed, and we did not want to make him furious and do bad things to us, let's say, in the Security Council of the UN and such. So Prime Minister Netanyahu cut a deal with Donald Trump saying, I'll go for that deal about the kidnapping. It's a bad deal, but I'll bear it. I'll bear it under the understanding that when you come to be president, all these Gazans are going to go out of Gaza, and Gaza is going to no longer be an Arab territory that threatens Israel. If this was the deal, then Prime Minister Netanyahu has seen way further and way broader than I did, and I just have to salute him for doing the right thing, because strategically, he's right. It's worth the price that we paid in this horrible deal that we made. But if this is not the outcome, then this is a bad deal. Okay? And I'm saying it with a lot of personal sympathy to the tragedy of these families, that their dear ones and beloved ones are in Gaza right now. I said that as a father to 3 boys serving in the IDF, in Reserve Army duties. 2 of them are combat officers who have been fighting in Gaza and will have to fight in Gaza if no deal is made, with the chance of being hurt, injured, or even killed. So I'm saying that when I have skin in the game, I'm not an outsider. I have my skin in the game. So this is something that's the way that I see those issues. Okay. But let's see, maybe Netanyahu was right. Maybe this is what's going to happen. And if that will happen, that's a strategic victory that would change the entire Middle East, because it would change the Arab way of thinking, and it would change even the Israeli way of thinking of how we should react to those issues.
Oh, I was actually looking at like Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I just felt that, he was probably foreseeing that, but I'm not sure either, as I'm not knowledgeable. And at the same time, I feel terrible for, the IDF soldiers, officers, getting killed, and also, I understand that, you have your, children serving, and I'm just, I'm really really relieved that there's like this ceasefire, agreement, and at that point actually, and um, I hope that I'm just really sorry for the hostages. But I just I hope that this. Well, I hope President Trump probably, he has made, I believe that he has made a good deal. Like, I just don't know, but I just pray
I
and hope.
certainly hope so. I would not want my boys to keep on fighting in Gaza, but you have to understand the army's goal is to fight and protect the civilians.
Yes.
That's the job of the army. That's why a state has an army. A state has an army to prevent its citizens from being killed by the enemy.
Oh.
The army has failed miserably on October 7th,
Mm.
and we would need now a big victory, and I hope we will achieve that with the aid of President Trump,
Mm.
and we will go forward from there.
Mm.
I do hope
I
so.
really do hope, pray and hope so too. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh, so in my, you know what, I have told, and I was so angry about this for a long time, like Kareem Khan and ICC. Yeah, just they have to be just, really, they have to feel the consequence of, what they have done to Prime Minister Netanyahu and, former defense minister. And just, calling out, like as a war criminal, under ICC, whatever. But I just hope that, US sanctions them. I mean,
Yeah.
I really hope and
Well,
pray
but let's look at that. Let's look at that from first of all the sort of factual issue,
Mhm.
and then what you mentioned is what I would say the tactical issue, and
Mhm.
then we need to broaden the scope to look at it strategically.
Um,
So technically, it can be verified that Israel is not committing any sort of war crimes in Gaza. Okay, the Gazans are not starving. There is a lot of aid coming in.
mm,
I mean, way too much, in my view. We shouldn't have done that, but we did that because that was the American pressure that allowed us to keep on fighting.
yeah.
So we gave them everything they want. It's the first time, I think, in modern history
Mm.
that one side in a conflict
Mhm.
supplies foods and other stuff to the other side.
Yeah,
Okay, but let's put that. There is no ethnic cleansing. There is no genocide because the population in Gaza has
Mhm.
not suffered genocide ever. In fact, it only grew up all the time. So
Mhm.
if we were committing genocide, it was the worst genocide ever made, and we are not that bad in doing things. So this is complete nonsense. These are all idiotic things. By the way, there was no reason for Israel to go and fight in Gaza unless October 7 had happened. We
Mhm.
went out of Gaza in 2005. We did not ask for a war. We
Mhm.
did not launch the war.
Mhm.
They launched an attack into our territory,
Mhm.
not into civilians who came into Gaza. They went into Israel and tried to kill as many as they can from us, women, children, and others alike.
Mhm.
We had to fight back. We did that in the best way an army can do in terms also of the moral issues. I'm against that. I would have done things differently, but this is it. So these are complete nonsense and has nothing to do with reality if anyone has bothered. But the ICC is a political institution, not a judicial institution.
Mhm.
And here we will come to the strategic view. But you have to understand, Israel is always blamed by everyone on everything. Okay?
Mhm.
If there are civilian casualties, Israel is doing something wrong and all that.
Mhm.
When there are civilian casualties, when the German or the Danish or the American or the British army are acting in Afghanistan, a
Yeah.
territory which nobody forced them to go to,
Mhm.
that's okay. That's part of warfare. Okay? because you only go to the ICC if you are weak and if you don't have the international support. These are the things. If you have international support or you are strong, you will never face the ICC. They will never they will never put on trial an American general or an American politician, because the Americans have passed a law that allow the president to invade Hague in order to free them. So they will not do that. But they will do that to Israelis because, as I told you once, no Jews, no news. So if we are there and we are in the midst of everything, then everybody can do that. Even inside Israel, in 2006, a lady named Tal Nitzan made a research for a master's degree in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, showing that there is almost no raping of Palestinian women by IDF soldiers. That doesn't exist. That is not according to what I'm saying, according to what every human rights and other organizations, all hatreds of Israel, were reporting. There were no rapes reported. What can we do? So the research explained the reason for that. And the reason is not that I educated my sons who were the soldiers, or me who was a soldier, were educated in the proper way to respect women, to give rights to people and all that. No, it is because we are racists. And because we are racists, we are not raping Palestinian women. And that won the first prize in Israel for the best research.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, who gave that?
Because they say, this is a very, the Israeli Psychologists Association gave us the first prize. Because we are saying, they are racist. The Jewish soldiers do not want to come amongst these Arabs and Gentiles because they don't consider them human, so they don't rape them. So it's the first thing. No matter what we do, we will be blamed of something. We will rape them, they will say, you are rapist. We won't rape them, they say, you didn't. It is the first time in history, in all history of mankind, that an army is accused of not raping women, which is, in my view, a horrible crime to rape. I mean, rape is a horrible crime that should not exist. So saying that you don't rape because you are racist and not because you are well educated. So now let's go to the wider scope. Wider scope is that we see all over the Western world, may it be the United States and Israel as outstanding example, but we can see the same in France, we can see the same in Canada. The judicial system is being weaponized against politicians. That is what's happening all over. They tried that with Donald Trump before he became president. They tried that with Netanyahu and he's still fighting. All these, so to speak, judicial institutions, courts, attorney generals, etc., are being weaponized to achieve political goals, not to do justice, not to bring to bring into justice people who deserves to be brought to justice and so on. They want to promote a political agenda by either putting the agenda forward, okay, or by eliminating people that are against their agenda, things like that. So this is part of it. You have to look at the ICC as part of that so-called judicial system that is being weaponized in order to achieve a political goal. And the political goal in that respect is to smear Israel, to cause Israel not to fight the Palestinians, to make its politicians and generals frightened from the consequences of conducting a military campaign against the Palestinians and so on. That's the political goal. And this is the weapon, the ICC. So I don't give it a credit as a institution that worth discussing or anything, we
Mhm.
should have acted differently against it. We should have not collaborated with it. We should have not sent the judges to it. We should have acted against its officials in many ways that are possible, but I will not describe them here. But we didn't do that. So we suffered the verdict, and we suffered right now the acts against Prime Minister Netanyahu and against the former Minister of Defense Gallant, and that's bad.
Yeah,
But I hope that that is going to be changed by President Trump. So,
I really hope so too. Yes, I do hope so. Because yeah, I obviously believe that, Korean Corn didn't make any, you know, judgment according to so-called international law because it doesn't exist in the first place, as you
yeah,
say.
yeah,
And
yeah.
um actually one thing that, yeah, like the Japanese media has been saying, claiming is that, I subscribe to actually the Time of Israel and the Jerusalem Post. I actually write blogs sometimes, the Times of Israel. So maybe I'll send you a link sometime. Like,
Mhm.
I talk about how Iran
I,
should be destroyed. Like,
yeah. I'm sorry, but I don't read newspaper for the past over 40 years or so. I don't believe a word that is being written.
okay. Yeah, you know what? I'm not writing articles, but it's just a blog, so blog,
Okay,
about
okay.
my perspective.
Send me and I'll read it. Send me, I'll
Okay.
read it. Hmm.
Um, but you already answered question about aura, but I just, about 10 years ago when I first, published my first ebook, there were a lot of actually US um army, personnel, who wrote to me a lot of things. And one of the things was actually about Israel. And, like I was actually listening to what he was saying was that, he was talking about this UN issue. And, the UN, always blaming Israel for something, which is
Yeah.
probably, I don't think it's fair. But I'm not, see, but yeah, he was talking about this, uh, yeah, like, this, online education, and he saw just, he just sent me the link, and that was the first time I ever had like an education system telling people to kill people, which is
Hmm.
like I didn't have words, and after a while, I just blocked on X, like, and then like I
Yeah.
remember this when I first saw October 7th, it just came to, well, like on sub. I have to tell you something else. Um, in September, Lazzarini came to Japan, and Lazzarini is chief of, like, this honor thing, right? And
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
said that he is going to have a chief operating office in Japan. And
Hmm.
uh I was quite curious about it, like, and I thought that he would come to Japan because Japan is funding UNRWA a lot, you know, like supporting,
Yeah.
like sending
Yeah.
a lot of funds to UNRWA. But because I wrote a lot of like things that, how Aura should disappear after that, like how I oppose Aura so much. And I just
Yeah.
felt that, why the reason why I believe that Aura should disappear. And I mean, I have, searched a lot, after, I saw that video because it was so terrible. And
Hmm.
never heard, well, like that was the time I started to have like doubts against like the UN so bad. And also, like, he was, yeah, he was first, like, um, complaining a lot about like the UN system, and then like yeah, he came to this thing, but it's I don't know what to really say, but is it because of UNRWA that
Look,
yeah.
UNRWA is a part of the UN that was established because the UN has a majority that is against Israel. It's every nation has a vote,
Mm,
and it's the same vote,
mm,
except for the veto in the UN Security Council, but let's ignore that.
mm,
So there is an automatic voting against Israel. Now, the Arab wanted to maintain the conflict. To maintain a conflict, you need refugees. If you have just a problem of land, everybody will tell you it's easy to solve.
mm,
Refugees are more complicated, and refugees creates a sympathetic public opinion
mm,
towards the refugees and towards those that have created the problem of the refugees.
mm,
Okay, without looking at the facts. Okay, we don't need the facts. So the UN has two different agencies to
mm,
take care of refugees. One is UNRWA, who
mm,
takes care of refugees in
mm,
Palestine, only in Palestine.
mhm,
Then there is another one, the UNHCR,
mhm. Oh
which
yes,
is the
yes.
one that takes care of
Yeah,
all other
all the
refugees around the world,
yeah,
all the others.
yeah.
And they differ, first of all, in the definition of a refugee. The definition of a refugee by UNHCR is anyone who had to, by force, leave. Force might be, by the way, not just military force, it can be a force of nature. Leave his house that he lived ever since and go elsewhere.
Mm,
And within one generation, they are supposed to solve that problem.
mm,
UNRWA says anyone who lived in Palestine, in what is called the State of Israel, before 1946, 2 years before the erection of the State of Israel, is a Palestinian refugee, him and his successors ever. So the amount of refugees is always increasing and never decreasing.
mm,
And UNRWA has a lot of staff. Let's say, I know the numbers at 2007, UNRWA had a staff of 25,000 in Gaza and the Judea and Samaria, whereas the UNHCR had 5,000. And there are about 10 times more refugees around the world than Palestinian refugees, even though they have just increased since 1946. Because if we have waited since 1946, we would have any refugee by now. According to UNHCR, we would have almost zero refugees by now. So what does UNRWA do in order to maintain the problem? Because that's their real mission,
mm,
not to take care of them. Take all the money they have and see how many refugees have gone from a refugee camp to go and live in an apartment that UNRWA has made them. How many of them has went into working in jobs that UNRWA created?
mm,
Because if you want to give a refugee a better life, you take care of his work, you take care of his housing, you take care of his way of life and everything. They've done none of that. They have just been educating. Part of them, we found at least, I think, seven or a little more
mm.
UNRWA members that were part of the massacre in October 7. They
I
were
believe
there. They
I
were
believe
photographed.
I believe that there are far more than six that ICJ is
Yeah,
discussing.
but those ones that we were able to catch on camera
Mm,
that we know, and they said, okay, it's the occupation, and and they educate the Palestinians to hate the Jews and Israel, and they try to make sure that the wish to return to their home, what is called the
mm.
right of return
Yeah,
to their
yeah,
home,
right, right, right.
would
But
still live
that's
in their hearts forever.
mm,
But if you go to look
mm,
at what the occupation, the Israeli occupation has done
mhm,
to the Palestinians,
mhm,
and you look at what has happened in all types of standards of living. For example, you look at the amount of gross national product that the Palestinians had when we conquered them and what they achieved in comparison to all others around us, let's say 25 years later. In 1991, they had a GDP that was way bigger than Egypt one, or GDP per capita. Egypt, Jordan, and Tunisia. If you try to look at the life expectancy, they at the year 2000, their life expectancy became higher than the Middle East average, where before that it was way below it went from 48 years to 72 years. The life expectancy of Palestinian was 48 in 1967. It came to 72 years in the year 2000. If you look at infant mortality, we brought them from 60 per 1,000 births to 15 in 2000. Way below Iraq, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, anyone. If you look at their standard of living, how many houses were equipped with basic utilities of gas, running water, electricity, we brought all of them to almost 100. We lowered the illiteracy rate. And what did they do with all that? With all that, all they did is to try and kill us, to say, okay, but this is not what we want. That is to show you that the entire problem is different, and UNRWA is not something that helps the Palestinians. It's something that helps itself, because UNRWA would cease to exist if there will be no Palestinian refugees. So why do they need to finish the refugees problem? If the refugees problem means the elimination of the organization, any organization that you have on the planet is first and foremost interested in its own survival as an organization. So if you put an organization and give it as a goal that by achieving it, the organization will be eliminated, he will never try to achieve that goal. That's what happened with UNRWA.
Well,
simple.
That explains that, UNRWA is Hamas, really. I mean, Hamas agenda.
Because it takes its worker from the local population. And as I told you at the beginning, most of the population in Gaza is Hamas supportive. You have to remember, Hamas went up by democratic elections forced by President Bush, and that's what happened. And then we got the Hamas. So Hamas is Gaza and Gaza is Hamas, and therefore if you take the workers from the Gazians, you'll get Hamas being brought into UNRWA.
Well, that's kind of scary because they might start to collect information about Israel. Really. I mean, if they are, it's kind of like scary.
No, but we now passed a bill. We now passed a bill in the Israeli parliament. UNRWA is banned from being in Israel.
Yeah, I'm very pleased.
From the end of January. So we are okay with that. And since we've been talking for quite a long time now, I think I would like to put a positive way of looking at things for the when we are coming close to the end, and say, look, we the Jewish people have endured a lot of suffering, a lot of problem, a lot of injustice along the years, from all sorts of reasons and all sorts of places and so on. We survived. We will overcome this crisis as well, and we will become even stronger on the other side. We have, most of us have a strong belief in our case and our right and just cause. And because we have a positive, a just, and a right cause, we shall prevail. We shall prevail. There will be prices to pay. That's understandable. This is something that we have to take into account, but we will prevail. No doubts about that. Because the Jewish people is determined to live on his homeland, because we are right and because we have no other place to go.
That's great. Really? It's like, yeah, I need to visit Israel like in the future. So there has to be Israel,
You
of course.
you are more than welcome. You are more than
And
welcome.
yeah, yeah, actually, I haven't told anyone, but finally it kind of like reached the agreement. But I am discussing with the curator of the Tekhetin Museum in Haifa about
Hmm.
the collections that I have, the tops. No, it's kind of like tops are important for I guess Jewish people in Hanukkah, like during Hanukkah, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very different, and I hope that children enjoy it. So
Okay. Great.
there are about like
Great. Great.
a
Great.
hundred of them, and
Great.
so that
Great. Great.
I decided to hand over because I cannot do the conservation myself, and I hope
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there will be I know that there are a lot of like technologies, like craftsmen working on it. So. Yeah, I hope
Hmm.
that, there will be because it's kind of like intricate tops, like mechanic, kind of toys that I
Hmm.
have,
Hmm.
about like
Hmm. Hmm.
100 of them. So I hope that,
Wow.
yes. So I actually donated some to Camp Zama where, MacArthur was the commander, to the
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
probably I hope that, they live as long as Israel.
Great. Great.
So yeah, that's actually I have never told anyone, but actually this is a help with the
Wow.
help of like a person called Dr. Ophir Hivory. And yeah, we're discussing with
Okay.
actually the actual curator there. So yeah, and
So
actually it's going
they,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead. I
Uh
was willing to say that the listener of this podcast are hearing a scope for the first time.
yeah, well, your analysis and your opinions are very, important for me, and I guess for, yeah, like your objective discussions was very,
Hmm.
very, I guess, like important for me because those things I was opposing, I guess, like many things, but whatever. Um, um like the tops are picked up because like now like the transportation between I mean the postal service between Japan and Israel are like temporarily like restricted, so like there is
Hmm.
a person picking up in March, so
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
yeah,
Great.
they will bring my boxes to Israel.
Ah,
But I have to,
good.
I have to sort
Good.
out all the sizes and write the names and stories and all those things. So, so
Okay.
yeah, but anyway,
Okay.
yeah, that's my surprise to people. But yeah, I just
Great.
decided to do it. Yeah, but it had been
Great.
sleeping in my storage for a long time, and I hope that there is a moment that children play with it. So so anyway, I
Nice.
really appreciate your time for this because uh you know and also, I really, really appreciate, it's kind of like important for me to understand the Middle East, and also, it's,
Okay.
like Israel and, like it's from, to Israeli people, like, they live in the Middle East, right? So it's quite different. I guess it's quite different from what probably researchers have from their perspective from outside world. But I guess it was quite interesting. Yeah, very interesting for me to listen to your objective opinions. And I I hope that President Trump's agreement is very much effective because, I hope and pray that really. And I was actually quite
Yeah, yeah,
pleased with it. So, because I was
yeah.
so yeah,
Me
whatever.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
thank you very
anyway,
much for having me on your podcast,
oh,
Hiyoko.
it's
Uh, it has
my
been a
pleasure.
pleasure and an honor.
Oh, it is my pleasure
Great.
and it is
Mhm.
my honor. And thank you for your time in the morning. It's a busy time for you probably. So,
Thank you for thank you for having me. Mhm.
well,
Bye.
okay. I hope you have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, and have a good evening.
Again, it was such a privilege to invite Colonel Zamir on my podcast. Um, I I believe that he gave me a lot of objective opinions, but he has a lot in mind at the same time, for in his heart about I guess October 7th and other incident. As I'm sorry, but I get very emotional, and also about what happened on October 7th. It's not just a person getting killed or something like that. It it goes back to its history, and um, well, he does, Colonel Zamir does not represent any organization telling opinions on my podcast, and also at the same time, he has not shared any information. I mean, he has shared his opinion uh, about various issues, and um, yes, so I hope that the listeners listen to his opinion objectively and understand um, his views, and at the same time, probably you have your opinions, and just feel free to send me if you would like. Anyway, I hope you have the good rest of the day in Israel, because the guest is from Israel. And as I have had told Colonel Zamir, I am, well, it's not exactly, well, I do not want to say donation, like in large meetings, but uh, I have a collection of tops, and there is a reason why I collected the tops, but I would just not, cut short and uh, tell like that Dr. Ophir Hivray um, made a lot of contributions. I mean, not financially, but he had made kind offers to help me find a museum, which is a very prominent museum in Israel, um, on Japanese culture or Japanese art. And um, as I said, I cannot do any good conservation for what I have. And I hope that children of Israel and also people of Israel enjoy my tops when they have opportunities to play with it, or just watch it, or it's up to the museum, but it's going to be in Tegetin Museum, and they are going to be on the good hands, hopefully March, and I am very excited to yes, do all the work that I have to do to get my tops to just fly to Israel first. Okay, so I hope you have a good rest of the day for Israeli people. And it's late at night. It's almost February 7th here, like in 15 minutes. And then I hope you have a good day in the East Coast. So, good night.